Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Record Rangers podcast. My name's Gavin Berry and I'm delighted to say once again I'm joined by the Sunday Mail's chief football writer, Scott McDermott. Scott, how are you?
I'm okay, Gav. Yourself?
Good. Scott, I remember when we spoke on the Rangers podcast going back, it was during the sort of that unbeaten run that Philippe Clement was on when he'd hauled Rangers back into the title race. They may even have been top at that time. They might even have been favourites. But I remember saying to you, having been out of it and got back into it, however unlikely it was, I said, would fans be able to look at the bigger picture if they lost out in the title by a goal, for example? And you were saying, oh no, I mean, you can't now, nobody will consider the good work and the fact that we're 7 points behind because they're now in this position. They won't be able to look at the bigger picture. Here we are now. Of course, it's more than just a goal. It's it looks as if it could be 6 points if Celtic win against Carmarthen. But whatever it'll end up being come the final whistle on the last day of the season, it's going to be a bigger gap than we would have thought probably certainly when Rangers were at the top of the league. So I'll ask you the same question again. Can you look at the bigger picture now? Or
Listen, it's a difficult one to balance, Gav, because when Michael Beale left the club, I think most Rangers fans, if not all, had accepted that the title was gone. I mean, I certainly thought it was gone and there'd be no way back, irrespective of who came in. I just thought Celtic, the way they were under Brendan Rodgers at that point, the way it had gone for Rangers, the recruitment for Rangers that summer, Michael Beale signings clearly weren't working out the way he'd hoped. So at that point, if you'd have said to somebody, listen, you're going to win the 2 cups and you're going to lose the league by 5 or 6 points, I think most Rangers fans would have bitten their hand off for that at that stage. In fact, I think if you'd have said to Celtic fans at that point, Rangers are going to win the 2 cups and Celtic will win the league by 5 or 6 points, I think they'd have probably been a wee bit disappointed in that. Do you know what I mean? Because of the situation at that time. However, the flip side is, as you say, Rangers haul themselves back into it.
Yeah.
They're in the driving seat at one point. Celtic look as if they're they're stumbling. They're going through a bad spell. People are questioning Brendan Rodgers and the signings that they've made. Suddenly, it had flipped, and so Rangers found themselves in a position where they could go and win the league, and there was talk of a potential treble. Now, I think when we spoke back at that time, as you say, we also probably would have said that there'll be a setback for Rangers at some point, and it's just how they deal with that. And unfortunately, it wasn't just a setback, it was a mini crisis. And the defeats to Motherwell and Ross County, the draw away to Dundee, the Old Firm performances and results, it's made it a kind of pretty disastrous end to the league season for them. So obviously that makes it kind of difficult for fans to stomach. But they've still got the cup final. They are underdogs, heavy underdogs, I would suggest, for the cup final. But if these players can somehow muster a performance at Hampden and win that cup, the last game of the season, the showpiece, we know we've been in this game so long now. We know how it works. If you can win that cup final, even when you've lost the league, it's kind of what people remember when they go off for the summer. It's just that last game, that trophy lift. So I think if Rangers did go off in the summer and were able to look back and say, from where they were to get 2 trophies and narrowly lose the league, I'm not saying they would accept it, but as I say, from where they were when Clement came in, if you'd have said to them at the time, I think they'd have bitten their hand off for it.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny Miller was making the point. I heard them on the radio the other day, and he's right. That's now 3 games for Philippe Clement against Celtic. 2 defeats, albeit 10 men at Celtic Park. By a single goal. Yeah, and the draw at Ibrox, you know, so that's 3 games. He goes into this cup final, and as you say, how it ends is so important, because if he loses that cup final, and he is the underdog, you go to that first Old Firm game of next season, league game, Parkhead. You're going there looking to avoid defeat for five games, you know, without a victory over your rivals. And again, he's going to be underdogs for that. It's, you know, different to Ibrox, but you can already see it.
100%. He's going to be under major pressure at the start of next season if you lose that. If you lose that cup final. No, listen, I believe. I think I heard Chris Boyd saying last night on the TV that Rangers can't keep hiring and firing managers. It's just not the way, and it's not going to work for them. They need to put faith in Philippe Clement, and I do believe that, and I believe in him as a manager. So he has to be given time, even if it doesn't start as well as they would hope next season. However, from the outside, he's going to be under major pressure if he loses the cup final, because, as you say, very few Old Firm managers will go 4 derbies without winning and survive very long. I mean, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst had a poor start to his kind of derby record when he arrived. You know, it was a particularly heavy defeat at Celtic Park, but he went to Hampden, and the game that kind of changed that for him was obviously the Scottish Cup semi-final couple of seasons ago, where Rangers, I was speaking to somebody yesterday about it, that's probably the last time Rangers really dominated Celtic, but went toe-to-toe with them and looked as if they were genuine. It was a 50-50 game, and Rangers looked up for it. They had the hunger, the desire, the quality, and they deservedly won that semi-final. And if you remember, that was coming off the back of an away game in Braga when they were on the run to Seville.
Well, home game, extra time. It was the extra time win, because they went extra time and then extra time again. That's right. Yeah.
So that turned things for Gio, because, I mean, obviously he was on the great European run, so he would obviously go to the end of the season and beyond. But just in terms of Old Firm derbies, he had to get a result, and I think it's the same for Clement in the final, because you're talking about his previous 3 derbies, the 3 games so far, and the results, a draw and losing by the odd goal, but it's been the performances, Gav. The performances have been miles off it. Let's be honest. I mean, the first 45 at Ibrox, in a game where they had to win, and if they had won, they were really going in the ascendancy in terms of the title race. To produce that performance in the first 45 was unforgivable. And the games at Celtic Park, they go 2 down. They go 2 down early, pretty much in both of them. And despite a kind of late rally, it's always too little, too late. So forget the results. The performances in the Old Firm games haven't been anywhere near good enough under Clement, and that's going to have to change in the cup final.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Van Bronckhorst, obviously the semi-final. I mean, that is the last meaningful Old Firm game that Rangers have won, because obviously Michael Beale's one at the end of last season was a dead rubber. You forget even about the league game after that Scottish Cup semi-final when Rangers went to Celtic Park, albeit they had to win the game really to stay in with a chance of winning the league. But remember, they got a draw and played well. And actually, remember at the end, was
Sakala scored, wasn't it, for the 1-1?
Yeah, and then somebody hit the post to make it. Was it Sakala again? I think it might have
been Sakala again. Aye.
Yeah, hit the post. I mean, the performance there. So, but of course, the wheels came off at the start of the following season. But you're right. At least there were signs there in the performance. They get the win at Hampden. They go to Celtic Park again, go toe to toe. But there's not been that sign under Philippe Clement, really.
No, I think you're right. And for him personally, he'll know that. He's no daft. He knows that he has to get to grips with this game. He needs a result by hook or by crook in one of these derbies to get fans on side. And you're right, it can't be a meaningless one. He's got to win one that matters, or get a positive result, positive performance in a game that matters.
Yeah.
So listen, we can't build this cup final up any bigger in terms of what it could mean for Rangers. As I say, given the season that they've had, given where Clement is, given where this squad is, and the kind of rebuild that's going to be required in the summer, I mean, it's absolutely vital that they can somehow, as I say, muster a performance to get the better of Celtic at Hampden. But Celtic are going to be massive favourites. They're going to get into it as champions on a high. It's going to be really tough for Rangers. But what I would say is I do think Hampden can be a bit of a leveller in terms of the 50-50 crowd, the neutral venue. Rangers' record there recently has been pretty good. I do think that'll make a difference. I do think it'll be a tighter game. It's just whether Clement gets his team and his tactics right, because they're going to have to be spot on to get the better of Celtic.
I mean, forgetting tactics and everything else, I mean, surely the big issue is, and this is his toughest task, it's just belief for these games. You're dealing with the same group of players who now are fans they have just lost all patience with them, have no faith in them. How can they expect them, and how can he get them to go there and believe that they can beat Celtic?
That's the problem. It's mentality. I mean, how many times have I said it on here? I mean, I sound like a broken record with this group of players. I think when it comes to crunch moments, they let Rangers fans down when it really matters. And as you say, I think they went to Celtic Park. I don't believe they went to Celtic Park thinking they could win. Genuinely, I mean, I believe that Clement thought they could win, but as a group of players, the way they played, particularly at the start of the game, you even think the Lundstrom red card, how kind of ill-disciplined it was. No, they don't have the belief, particularly when they go to Celtic Park, that they can win. But I do think, as I say, I think Hampden helps with that, because they do have a recent good record there. No, there is a 50-50 split with the punters, which I do think makes a difference. So you're right. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know how Clement somehow makes them believe that they can go and get the better of Celtic, because they haven't been able to do it in recent times. But if he can get some injured players back, and as I say, if he can somehow convince them, in a one-off game, 90 minutes or 120 minutes, whatever it might be, to stay in the first things first, stay in the game long enough. Going 2 down, it'll be curtains again for them if they do that again at Hampden. So stay in the game long enough, compete with Celtic, run quicker, run faster, run harder. You need to up your level. I was speaking to, it was Kenny Miller I was speaking to yesterday about this. The players, it's as if they don't realise that against Celtic, they need to up a level. I mean, Celtic are a couple of levels above Rangers at the minute, but Rangers get into these games playing the exact same way and the exact same tempo as they do for like an away game at Kilmarnock or an away game at St Johnstone. I mean, it just baffles me. And listen, last night again, he sends his team out looking for a reaction against Dundee. The place is flat, so that the players need to get the crowd up for it with their performance. And yet again, he has to come out after the game bemoaning the slow start, the laboured start, the predictable play. And it's only another rocket at half time that gets them up for it and lets them turn the game around. And to me, that's the problem with these players. I mean, too many of them play when they want and when they want to play. And to be a Rangers player, that's never going to be good enough. You're never going to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back, sorry to go backtrack here, but just talking about that Hampden game, and you think, well, what is different? Because obviously we're going up against a Celtic team who many regard as being far better than this Celtic team, albeit it was Ange Postecoglou's first season. They weren't quite as good. Rangers
were better as well, though, Gavin.
Yeah, but what I'm looking at the team. So I mean, Bassey and Aribo. I mean, when they left that summer, the following season, we spoke on here many times, and with Andy Newport. You know, when Rangers started badly, you know, or they were struggling under Van Bronckhorst. Well, what's the difference? And we'll say it can't just be two players. I mean, I'm looking at Bassey and Aribo, but do you think those two players in particular? Aaron Ramsey started that game. Ryan Jack, of course, has been injured. Ryan Kent played Kemar Roof, but I mean, where are the major differences? Did Aribo and Bassey make such a difference, do you think?
I think Bassey at that stage, if you remember, was absolutely flying. And
he was.
It was his form at that time which ultimately got him his big move. I mean, he was a vital player for Rangers. You look at the winning goal that Rangers got and the role Bassey had in it at that stage in the game. So even wee things like that do make a big difference. I think, even the physicality of Aribo in midfield, you're talking about Ryan Jack there, was probably playing some of his best football. You think of that run to Seville. Ryan Kent, we spoke about him a million times about how his numbers weren't great, but he was still a player I think Celtic feared and kind of knew that that they knew he was capable of producing against them. Even guys like Scott Arfield that scored the goal that day was a kind of vital member of the squad. I don't even see an Arfield in the Rangers team at the minute. Even though as a starter, but even as a sub, a guy that could have that impact, a guy that would go beyond strikers and get a goal. I don't see that at all just now. So I think different circumstances, different times. You think of the high that Rangers were on at that time because of the European run, get into that semi-finals, you say, coming off the back of the Braga tie. So different times, and I do think player-wise, Rangers were stronger, certainly in that first 11.
Yeah, I mean, really, it all starts. We spoke about that run earlier under Clement, the long winning run, the long unbeaten run, just the Celtic defeat in there in the festive Old Firm derby. Go to Kilmarnock and come from behind to win 2-1. That is the night when it's people think, right, okay, this is Kilmarnock, tough place to go. You're a goal down, you win 2-1. Then the problems start. Go home to Motherwell on the Saturday and lose 2-1. I mean, and then the sort of wheels come off a bit. Of course, we've got the Benfica games in there, 2-each draw. But there were signs around then that they weren't quite firing. Did you see anything, in that Motherwell game and the weeks after? What changed from the night at Kilmarnock? What changed?
I think what changed is the pressure was on and they crumbled. I mean, we're going back to...
But the pressure was on when they went to Rugby Park and they came through it. So, I mean, home to Motherwell. I mean,
but by the way, if you remember the Rugby Park game, I mean, they were played poorly that night. And they got out of jail a wee bit. I think it was a Tavernier free kick. And listen, I get that you need to grind out results. That's the whole point. So they did show a bit of character that night. But it doesn't really matter what game it is. Ultimately, it's just once you're in a position where people are then expecting you to go on and clinch it. Once you get to the business end of the season, the kind of squeaky bum time. That's when you need to produce it. And as I say, these players have far too often wilted when the heat was on. I mean, listen, there are other factors. I mean, injuries have been huge for them. You go back to the Motherwell game, you're saying what changed. I mean, I think in that Motherwell game, there were signs that the team wasn't functioning quite as well as it had done. I've mentioned to you before that as much as I think Diomandi's a good player, I think him coming in did change the dynamic of the midfield. And previously, when it was a Ryan Jack or a Dujon Sterling in there beside Lundstrom, Rangers looked a lot more secure. The big difference, if you're asking about an actual footballing difference or performance difference, I've said to you before on here that Rangers are just giving up far too many chances. They started to give up far too many chances to opposition teams, and that was the hallmark of Clement when he came in, that he'd tightened up, and Rangers looked secure very secure in and out of possession. No, they didn't look susceptible to counter-attacks at all. You think, I seen a stat this morning, the defensive record in the last few months and the goals Rangers have conceded, it's like double. They've conceded like double the amount of goals in the past 8 weeks than they did in the whole previous time that Clement was in. So something clearly changed, whether that was the pressure that I'm talking about, the expectation, whether that that kind of goes on to the team and they start losing goals, no defending properly. Who knows? But there was certainly a big shift.
And I did ask you before, but is there an element of, because I mean they had such a bad start to the season, they were regarded as a poor team, poor recruitment, poor summer signings, that Philippe Clement, when they were on that run, was just getting them to perform, punch so far above their weight that eventually it was just going to revert back to what they are, which is what we're seeing now, as something in between. Maybe right, they were never as good as they were when they were on that run, and they're maybe not quite as bad as they were, in the Dundee and Ross County games. It just balances out, no?
Yeah, possibly. And as I say, injuries have played a part as well. I mean, but big injuries. You look at the defence. Look at defence last night. You're back to Leon King and Ben Davies at the back. I mean, if you'd have said that a few months ago, you wouldn't have believed it. Given where Rangers were, and as you say, that run that they were on. But ultimately, I go back to it. I know what you're saying. Eventually there's going to be a kind of drop off, but when it got to the business end of the season, you saw a difference in Celtic going up the way, and you saw a difference in Rangers going the other way. That's the bottom line. Whether these players like it or not, it was in their hands. This isn't a great Celtic team by any stretch. They've had their issues as well. Yeah. They've had injury problems, albeit they've got players back probably at the right time, where Rangers haven't. But there was a huge opportunity for Rangers to go and do it. And ultimately, we speak about the Old Firm games. If they'd have taken Kerry, Motherwell and Ross County, then the Old Firm games might not have even mattered. That's how crucial these games were.
Although I see the counter argument is that even if Rangers had won both of those games and lost at Celtic Park, they would still have been a point behind or whatever. Okay, they wouldn't have been out of it, but they would still have been trailing. They would still had to have gone to Celtic Park and get a draw, probably.
Yeah, let's be honest. Losing at home, with all due respect to Motherwell and Ross County, I mean, those results in a title race, they're just unforgivable, Gav. We know it. History tells you that. You just cannot lose those types of games. The Motherwell game was almost like, at the time, because they had this great run to get back. I remember being at the Motherwell game, people weren't even didn't seem that bothered about it. It was just like, well, listen, it's fine. It's a wee blip. We'll get back on it. Unforgivable at that stage in the season. And the Ross County one was arguably worse. When you think of what Ross County have done this season before that game,
and since
what they've done, it's incredible. I mean, first time in their history they ever beat Rangers. Rangers are in front in the game and still lose it. And by the way, don't just lose it; they lose 3 when it could have been 5 or 6.
Or they capitulate.
Even the Dundee game, which wasn't as bad. It was a point. Philippe Clement seemed relatively happy with that performance, even though I would strongly disagree. You look at Dundee's defensive record since then. I mean, they showed it again last. I mean, they've literally lost 3, 4, 5 goals in almost every game, and yet Rangers could barely muster a shot on target that night. So,
I mean, this is the thing. You say Celtic are poor, and they have been poor at times this season, but they probably have more quality players. I think Kenny Miller said this as well the other week. They've got sort of 4 or 5 players that are better quality, and so. But if that was the chance, and Rangers had the chance and they've blown it, of course, the other thing that would go with the league title this season was get straight into the Champions League and all the money that brings, which Celtic now get So how do Rangers close this gap then in the summer? How do they close it? Because it's all right saying there's a rebuild, but where does the money come from?
It's a big worry. It's a big worry, Gav. I mean, arguably the most worrying thing I think Philippe Clement said last night. I was just reading through his quotes this morning, and I think he said he was talking about the young players coming in, and he said this has to be the way for Rangers, and there was just a sentence where he said, "No, that has to be the answer to help with the club's difficult financial situation." I think that was a quote.
Yeah,
and to me that was very telling and quite worrying for Rangers fans, because he'll know now what's available budget wise in the summer and what he's working with. And I know they're going to bring in money. They're going to bring in money from wages alone when the likes of Kemar Roof, John Lundstrom, Ryan Jack, Leon Balogun, and a few others, who will probably go in the summer. But no, serious money has to be spent on getting players in, and it's not going to be easy given the outlay last summer for a group of new signings who were clearly not good enough, and it's going to be difficult to get players off the wage bill who Clement doesn't want. So to answer your question, it's going to be a monumental task for Clement to claw this back when you think of the money that Celtic are going to get with the Champions League. And even listening to Brendan Rodgers, as I have done all season, you've never really felt that he was kind of happy with his squad or content with where it was. You always felt...
He said it yesterday. He openly said it.
He's just waiting to get to this summer to get his own men in and really then go and build and make Celtic stronger. And that's a huge worry for Rangers, I think. And it also just exemplifies what you're saying there about the opportunity they had this season, because ultimately it was in their own hands and they've thrown it away. So it's going to be really difficult. Recruitment, again, is going to be key. He's going to have to wheel and deal. I think he's going to have to unearth a couple of gems from whether it's Niels Coppen, the kind of recruitment guy, whether it's through players that Clement knows in Belgium or France or further afield, players that he knows he can rely on. But when you think of the turnaround that might be needed in that squad, it's going to be a huge challenge for them next season.
Just to counter that, I mean, if you look back to the season that Steven Gerrard came in, I mean, you remember the gap then from Rangers to Celtic. I mean, Steven Gerrard didn't spend absolute fortunes, did he?
No, and listen, the other side is, it's okay me saying Brendan Rodgers is ready to build again. No, Brendan Rodgers Celtic might get the recruitment wrong. No, there's every chance. Celtic didn't get it 100% right when Rodgers was here the last time. They've certainly not got it 100% right since Ange came in. No, you think of the kind of guys that are surplus to requirements there, like your Lagerbielkas and your Navrowskis and your O's and people like that. So, they might not get it right, but Rangers have to get it right to give themselves a chance. I mean, you look at the squad. Honestly, you look at the squad now. I mean, I looked at it the other night. I mean, I honestly think there's like 7 or 8 players tops that you would say definitely keep, and try and kind of build it around them and add to it. But
who were they? Just out of curiosity, because Chris Boyd couldn't name many when I was watching them on Sky Sports.
I think
Butland's a definite. Diarmaid's a definite. So that's you two. There's 2 right away. Yilmaz, you keep.
I would keep Yilmaz, who's, if he can stay fit, looks as if he'd be a decent signing. You're still going to need a left back with Barisic going, but certainly keep Yilmaz.
Yeah, John Souttar 4.
I would keep John Souttar. Yeah.
Who else have we got?
I would keep Raskin, just because his age.
Raskin 5.
His age and his profile, and you would hope that with a pre-season, Clement can get the best out of him. Listen, I think Danilo and Dessers will have to stay, so you'd probably keep them. But my feeling on them would be with Lammers and Roof going, you would think they're going to need to sell Lammers, but no, thankfully for them, he's done well over in Holland, the loan spell. You'd like to think they would get a decent fee for him. With Lammers and Roof going, there's space obviously to bring in another striker, and I think the striker coming in almost has to be the number one, and Danilo and Dessers would be the guys backing them up. And that might seem a bit harsh, but given what I've seen of Danilo and Dessers this season, I don't think they're good enough to be Rangers' number one striker for a title challenge next summer. Okay, so they two would stay. So of the others, I mean, Tavernier is always going to be up for debate, and that'll all depend on whether an offer comes in from Saudi or abroad or whatever. You could debate all day about whether you would keep Tavernier if a bid comes in. If it doesn't, then he'll be there, obviously. I think guys like Cantwell and Lawrence still have it all to prove. I'm not convinced by Lawrence at all. I think Cantwell offers a bit more. And when you think of the loan guys, I think they should go and try and get Cortez. The little I've seen of him, I like the look of him. He reminded me a bit of Abada at Celtic when he first came in. A wide player, but with that real desire and hunger to get in at the back post and score goals. I think he showed enough in the short time that he was here that he'd be worth pursuing for Rangers. Silva will obviously be a no-go. And Sima again.
Oh, you take him back, of course.
Yeah, but it's the price. You're right. That's
what it's just with that. And it's just how much Brighton want, and are they going to punt them? Yeah. But we're rhyming off the players, Gavin. That's quite flimsy. Do you know what I mean? That's a lot of players that you would that will either go or you'd be willing to let go, and that's why we're saying it's going to be a big rebuild, a big turnaround. But to be fair to Clement, the way he's talking it's as if that's already started. I mean, I don't think he's just going to finish the season and then say, right, what do I do here? But listen, 12 months ago, we were in the same position listening to Michael Beale say the same thing. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And that's why fans are sceptical, because they've heard it all before. They've heard it so often. Every summer, here's another rebuild. It's always jam tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the perfect example of why you need to get it right, though, because that summer recruitment drive last year just wasn't good enough. Nowhere near good enough. You think of what those players, I mean, Butland, Sima, Dessers, maybe. I'm still nowhere near convinced about Dessers, despite the 22 goals this season, which might sound ridiculous, but he probably should have had 42 goals with the chances he's had. But you think of the players that came in, not enough of them have done what was required, and they just can't have another summer like that.
Yeah. Well, you're a hard man to please, Scott. Right, anyway, 22 goals, you're still not happy? No, I think everybody knows what you mean. Listen, thanks a lot for your time, and then next week we'll be back to build up to the Scottish Cup final. Andy Newport will be back, presumably, and the three of us can get together and have a chat. So thanks for your time today, and thanks for listening.